The Golden Glow, a complete guide to processing beeswax and crafting pure non-toxic candles. There's a specific kind of magic that happens when you light a beeswax candle. Unlike the aggressive synthetic perfume of a paraffin pillar, or the somewhat clinical feel of a mass-produced soy joy jar, a beeswax candle feels alive. It carries the faint, sweet ghost of summer meadows, clover, honey, and the tireless work of thousands of bees. It doesn't just provide light, it provides an atmosphere. If you found your way here, you're likely looking for something more than just a hobby. You're looking for a way to bring non-toxic, sustainable, and truly natural light into your home. Perhaps you've even acquired a block of raw, sticky, debris-filled wax from a local beekeeper, and you're staring at it, wondering how on earth that gunk becomes a pristine golden taper. In this deep dive guide, we are going to walk through every single step of the journey. We'll cover why beeswax is the gold standard for indoor air quality, how to render raw wax into candle-grade purity, the science of wick selection, and the step-by-step process of pouring your own candles. Pull up a chair, grab a cup of tea, and let's get waxy. Why beeswax? The health and environmental case. Before we get our hands dirty, we need to understand the why. In a world full of $5 candles at the local big box store, why spend the time and effort on beeswax? The answer lies in what you aren't breathing in. The problem with paraffin. Most commercial candles are made from paraffin wax. Paraffin is a byproduct of the petroleum refining process. Literally, the sludge left over from turning crude oil into gasoline. When you burn paraffin, you are essentially burning a fossil fuel inside your living room. Studies have shown that burning paraffin can release volatile organic compounds, VOCs, like benzene and toluene, which are known carcinogens. If you've ever noticed black soot forming on your walls or the edges of your glass candle jars, that's petroleum soot. The beeswax difference. Beeswax is a completely different animal, literally. It is a natural wax produced by honeybees of the genus Apis. To produce wax, bees consume honey and use specialized glands to sweat out tiny flakes of wax, which they then use to build the hexagonal structures of the hive. When you burn a pure beeswax candle, you are engaging in a clean chemical reaction. Beeswax has a high melting point, the highest of any known wax, which means it burns slower and drips less. But the real superpower of beeswax is its relationship with ions. Beeswax is said to release negative ions when burned. Most pollutants in our air, dust, pollen, mold, and odors, carry a positive charge. When the negative ions from the candle meet the positive ions of the pollutants, they bind together, becoming too heavy to stay airborne. They drop to the floor where they can be vacuumed up. It is essentially nature's air purifier. For people with asthma or seasonal allergies, switching to beeswax can be a total game changer for their indoor air quality. Processing raw wax from hive to harvest. If you are buying pre-cleaned beeswax pellets, often called pastilles, you can skip this part, but for the purists who want to support local beekeepers, you will likely start with raw wax or cappings. This wax is dark, sticky, and full of bee bread, propolis, and the occasional unlucky bee. To make a candle that doesn't sputter or smell like burnt protein, you must render and filter it. The rendering process. Rendering is just a fancy word for melting and cleaning. You never want to put wax directly on a stovetop burner because it is highly flammable and will scorch. Instead, we use the water simmer method. The setup. Find a large stainless steel pot that you are willing to dedicate to wax forever. You will never get all the wax out of this pot again. So thrift stores are your friend here. The water bath. Fill the pot about 1/3 full of water. Place your raw wax chunks into the water. The melt. Heat the pot on low to medium heat. As the water warms, the wax will melt. Because wax is lighter than water, the liquid gold will float to the top, while the heavy impurities, called slum gum by beekeepers, will sink to the bottom or hang out in the water layer. The first cool, once everything is melted, turn off the heat and let the pot sit undisturbed overnight. As it cools, the wax will solidify into a thick puck on top of the water. The cleaning. Pop the wax puck out of the pot. You'll see a layer of brown, muddy-looking debris on the bottom of the puck. Take a sturdy knife and scrape all that gunk off until you see the yellow wax underneath. The final filtration. Now that the heavy lifting is done, you need to get the microscopic impurities out. If you don't, your candle wicks will clog and the flame will die out. Double boiler. Place your scraped wax puck into a double boiler, a melting pitcher sitting inside a pot of simmering water. The filter. Prepare a clean container, place a fine mesh strainer over it, lined with several layers of cheesecloth, or, my personal favorite, a pair of hide-and-ire nylon stockings. Slowly pour the melted wax through the filter. The result should be a clear, translucent golden liquid. This is candle-grade wax. You can pour this into muffin tins to create small blocks that are easy to store and weigh later. The essentials, tools of the trade. You don't need a factory to make world-class candles, but you do need the right kit. Making candles is a bit like baking. Precision matters. 1, the melting pitcher. Invest in a seamless aluminum pouring pitcher with a heat-resistant handle. It allows for steady pour, which is vital for preventing air bubbles. 2, the thermometer. Beeswax is temperamental. If you pour it too hot, it will crack as it cools. If you pour it too cool, you'll get frosting or uneven tops. An infrared laser thermometer or a simple candy thermometer is essential. You're aiming for a pouring temperature between 155 degree Fahrenheit and 165 degree Fahrenheit. 3, Wick's The Square Braid Secret. This is where most beginners fail. If you use a standard round braid wick meant for paraffin or soy, your beeswax candle will likely tunnel, or the flame will be tiny and sad. Beeswax is viscous. It requires a heavy-duty wick to pull the thick, melted wax up to the flame. You need square braid cotton wicks. These are specifically designed to curl slightly as they burn, which helps the wick self-trim and stay clear of carbon buildup. The size of the wick depends entirely on the diameter of your container. 4 containers and molds. Indeed, right in ancient glass jars, mason jars, or thick-walled glass are classic. Ensure they are heat-tempered so they don't shatter. Silicone molds, if you want to make pillar candles or fun shapes like beehives, silicone is the way to go. It's flexible, heat-resistant, and makes demolding a breeze. The recipe: should you add oil? Pure beeswax is beautiful, but it is notoriously prone to tunneling, where the flame burns on a hole straight down the middle, leaving a thick wall of unburnt wax on the sides. It is also prone to cracking because it shrinks significantly as it cools. To fix this, many makers add a small amount of organic coconut oil. Adding about 10% to 15% coconut oil to your beeswax does a few things. It lowers the melting point slightly, allowing for a wider melt pool of the liquid wax on top. It softens the wax just enough to prevent the candle from cracking in cold weather. It makes the candle slightly more opaque and creamy in appearance. If you are a purist, you can absolutely skip the oil, but you will have to be much more precise with your wick sizing to ensure a clean burn. Step by step, crafting your first jar candle. Let's put it all together. Imagine we are making a standard 8-ounce mason jar candle. Step 1, prep the jar. Clean your jar thoroughly. Any dust or fingerprint oil on the inside can prevent the wax from adhering to the glass. Warm the jar slightly. You can put it in a 150-degree oven for a few minutes or use a hairdryer. A warm jar prevents the wax from shocking and pulling away from the sides, which causes unsightly wet spots. Step 2. Set the wick. Apply a wick sticker or a dab of high-heat hot glue to the bottom of your wick tab. Center it perfectly in the bottom of the jar. Use a wick centering tool, a metal bar with a hole, or even a simple clothespin to keep the wick taut and centered at the top of the jar. Step 3. Melt the wax. Fill your double boiler with your filtered beeswax. Heat it slowly. Remember, safety first. Never leave melting wax unattended. If you are adding coconut oil, add it once the beeswax is fully liquid. Stir gently with a silicone spatula. Avoid vigorous stirring as this introduces air bubbles. Step 4. The scent. Optional. If you want a scented candle, use high-quality essential oils rather than synthetic fragrance oils. Essential oils like cedarwood, lemongrass, or lavender pair beautifully with the natural honey scent of the wax. Add your oils when the wax is around 160 degrees. Stir for a full minute to ensure they bond, and then get ready to pour. Step 5, the pour. Slowly pour the wax into the center of the jar. Stop about ½ an inch from the top. Step 6, the cool down and top off. Beeswax shrinks. About an hour after pouring, you might see a sinkhole or a dip around the wick. Don't worry. This is normal. Take your leftover wax, remelt it, and pour a thin top-off half layer to create a perfectly flat, smooth surface. Step 7, the cure. Trim the wick to about ½ an inch and let the candle sit for at least 48 hours. Beeswax is a crystalline structure. It needs time to set properly. If you light it too soon, it will burn much faster than it should. Masterclass, working with pillar molds. Pillar candles are the statues of the candle world. They don't need a jar to hold them up. Making these requires a slightly different approach. When using a silicone mold, you'll thread the wick through a small hole at the bottom of the mold, which will actually be the top of the candle. Use each wick putty or a bit of masking tape to seal the hole so the liquid wax doesn't leak out. For pillars, it is even more important to use 100% pure beeswax without coconut oil, as you want the wax to be as hard and structural as possible. Once the wax is completely cold, usually 12 to 24 hours, you can peel the silicone back. The result is a professional-looking matte finish candle that looks like it came from a high-end boutique. The science of the burn, how to enjoy your candle. A handmade beeswax candle is an investment in time and materials. To get the most out of it, you need to teach the candle how to behave. The first burn is everything. The first time you light your candle, let it burn until the liquid wax pool reaches all the way to the edges of the jar. This is called setting the memory. If you blow it out before the pool reaches the edges, the candle will likely tunnel for the rest of its life, wasting a huge portion of the wax. Trim the wick. Before every single light, trim the wick to about 1/4 inch. If the wick is too long, the flame will be too high. It will consume wax too quickly, and it might start to smoke. A trimmed wick ensures a calm, steady, teardrop-shaped flame. Extinguish with care. Instead of blowing out the candle, which creates smoke and can move the wick, use a wick snuffer or a wick dipper. A dipper is just a small metal hook you use to push the lit wick into the pool of melted wax and then pull it back out. This coats the wick in fresh wax, making it easier to light next time, and prevents that smoky smell from filling the room. Troubleshooting like a pro. Even if you follow every step, beeswax can be a bit of a diva. Here is how to fix the most common issues. My candle has a white, dusty film on it. This is called bloom. It's actually a sign of purity. It happens when the natural oils in the beeswax migrate to the surface. It doesn't affect the burn at all. If you don't like the look of it, just wipe it with a soft cloth or give it a quick blast with a hairdryer, and the golden shine will return. The flame is flickering and jumping. This usually means there is a draft in the room or there is an impurity in the wax that is hitting the flame. Ensure your wax was filtered through at least 4 layers of cheesecloth. My jar cracked. This usually happens if the wick was off-center and the flame got too close to the glass, or if the glass wasn't heat-tempered. Always keep your wicks centered. The joy of the craft. Making beeswax candles is a slow, sensory process. It forces you to quiet down, to watch the temperature dial, to smell the honey, and to appreciate the complexity of nature. When you light that finished candle, you aren't just lighting a room. You're celebrating a partnership between humans and honeybees. You've taken a raw material from the earth, cleaned it with your own hands, and turned it into a source of pure, non-toxic light. That is something to be proud of.